watch and listen.
This is Pixar's amazing Hoppers. I can't believe it. We have an original Pixar movie popping off in the 2020s. Following an okay cinematic run of just under $400 million, Hoppers has now had a huge second wind over on Disney+. And how can you tell? Well, it's had the full treatment of being clipped up all over Shorts and TikTok. That's the measurement of success these days. And whilst it continues to feel like a symptom of back when they put Pixar originals straight onto streaming during the pandemic years, I'd argue that part of its streaming success is due to it first having that cinematic release. Which, by the way, is a legit release strategy tactic companies are starting to value, to the extent even Netflix from next year are looking into exploiting just that. And weirdly, I think part of its delayed success is also because initially, no one really had any expectations for Hoppers, right? I made no secret that I was not excited for this movie during the trailer phase, and I don't think I was alone. It just looked like another underdeveloped 2020s Pixar movie, or perhaps overly developed in the case of Elio. So what actually happened with this movie? Well, we're going to be running through this movie piece by piece to find out. We begin with a familiar staple of Pixar, an initially quirky opening that ends in tears with an old lady dying. It's a classic. But first they make sure to establish that the crazy beaver robot plot is also on the way. I like the slightly creepy animation it creates with this initial title card as well. And I think it's wise to plant that seed of the weirdness to come as well before we dive into the whole grandma stuff. If we started with that and then suddenly jumped into robot beavers without any setup, that would have felt a little jarring. From here, though we don't know it yet, we go straight into foreshadowing why animals may be interested in an uprising against humans.
Hey, turtle. Is it dead?
Considering a very familiar scene, I think the rock pool creatures from Finding Dory may want to get in on the action here as well. And from secretly planting the core conflict, we are then introduced to where our protagonist sits on all this.
I'm Mabel, and I'm gonna get you out of here.
Proceeding to put all class pets into her backpack, of which the snake would have definitely just eaten all the others, right? And turns out this ain't the first time.
Oh, she's doing it again!
And quite quickly, we can see how the art style's a little different for this movie, and that's great. Sure, it's still guilty of the Pixar bean mouth that we've had of recent years, but there's definitely something else going on in this one stylistically. I like to think maybe we're seeing more of the individual directors' styles in each new movie. And in a moment where typically the comedy would be the sole focus of this scene, instead we get two distinct moments zoning in on the tortoise, which again, keeps things laser focused on the movie's wider story and themes. The first one, where in the big, lol, she's about to set off the fire safety sprinklers moment, where amongst the chaos we have this shot, before the telling off in the office, where we go back to that tortoise back in its tank. As well as the central themes, these two moments being focused on also zones us into Mabel's perspective as a character. In a room full of adults shouting at her, her attention still drifts to the tortoise behind the glass. We don't see a lot from Mabel's mum in this movie, but there's no doubt that there is a struggle in the relationship.
You cannot bite people. It's not something I should have to say.
Mabel's biting people at school, mum can't deal with it, drops her off at grandma.
Outlaw's life is pretty lonely, huh?
A difficult parent-child relationship for the brief screen time we get that is handled much better here than in Elio. Seems as no biological relationship changes were made mid-production. The bar's pretty low these days. And this core relationship between Mabel and her grandma really was the first beat that I got a lot of the, oh, I didn't expect this from Hoppers, The first green flag coming out. It's true that this movie skews more bombastic comedy than other Pixar fare, yet we still have these quieter sequences that carry the signature emotional underpinning that you would expect from this studio. It is still there. And to those who think a more stylized Pixar looks too goofy to be stunning, and it's not for the sake of it either. All of this is informing us on Mabel as a character and why she does what she does throughout the entire movie.
Feel better?
However, this does not bang on repeat the formula of Up. We don't have the full growing up montage straight away in one helping. Instead, they trickle that in throughout the movie, which works a lot better in this case. It's quite obvious what's happened once we cut to the present day.
Gotta go, Grandma.
Yet we don't need to cut right to the tragedy at this point, as those emotional beats can serve the story better later on.
Get off the beaver dam! It's full of dynamite!
It's time for
Mayor Jerry.
a potentially tired political archetype that they've managed to make feel fresh and interesting in this movie. Particularly as, whilst his big plan in this movie is clearly not great in destroying a small ecosystem using sound frequencies to secretly keep them away, they also don't paint him as a clear-cut evil person either. That's saved for his iconic duplicate later, but we'll get there. Even from this first comedy beat between the two of them, they're framed with equal footing.
What are you doing? Love highways! They love other lives here!
For me, this was my first big laugh of the movie. In fact, from here, what I think begins to shine through is the comic timing we're getting out of the editing.
I'm not going anywhere. Nothing you can. Wait!
And even from this small sample size, you've also got two different uses of it. You have both the snappy quick gag, but you also have the comedic pause as well. And that's something that modern live action comedies are still often being criticized for sleeping on, favoring the improv and ad-libbing of the performers over proper scripted and storyboarded comedy writing that takes advantage of visuals and editing. The editing on Hoppers, on the other hand, has comic timing in droves, including some timing we've already seen in another movie.
Lake Springfield.
With 48 hours to get signatures together, she actually ends up with a more wholesome eventuality than Lisa.
Are you from the Senior Sitter Service?
Frogs.
Yet, there is a twist to it,
Come again?
followed by another one,
You've got a lot of energy. Here.
followed by another one.
Yes!
There were 3 definitive turns on that one bit. That's some good writing there. And it's here that Mabel starts to unwind the government conspiracy.
Only across land that wasn't home to any wildlife. It's why the state gave us permission to build.
In a plot involving humans disregarding the very nature they descend from, it's kind of perfect that we kick off with the mayor of Beaverton blowing up an actual beaver town. Mabel heads over to Beaverton University, and you'll never guess what the robots look like in there, but I'm getting ahead of myself. On this initial visit, we simply get further exposure of Mabel's character, consistent with her childhood self.
I'm in the middle of class, a class that you are enrolled in.
So we learn that Mabel's that classic, she's smart and got into college, but is too chaotic and one-track minded on the glade to actually commit to the course. Plus a chunk of childhood trauma chucked in there too. But as for the glade, she doesn't bear good news, as turns out the animals really are gone.
They left after the resident beaver moved out.
Leading to the big, aha, I know where this plot is going moment.
You can't save that place. Only a beaver can.
Oh, how wrong I was. My innocent mind, filled with the wild robot's more traditional portrayal of nature. Just gonna be like that with Avatar beavers, right? At this point of the rewatch, I'm starting to remember just how this movie jumps from run-of-the-mill opening act to completely unhinged crown fest in about 20 minutes. At this point, I'm still thinking that minds being transferred into a beaver's gonna be the weird bit. But still, we're in for the more straightforward period of stopping a mare, building a road.
Just gotta get one beaver.
As Mabel sets up camp to get the beavers back to the glade, giving us this opportunity for a flashback to remind us why she's so protective of this specific plot of land.
Mom, I'm not moving across the country. Grandma needs me.
Again, we are less than 15 minutes to the Mammal King's arrival. I think that's why some have criticism for the tone being messy. We go from ego campaigner looking after her grandma's house to the Avatar stuff to there's a beaver with a tiny crown here in not even 20 minutes. Just over 10 minutes away at this point. Yet I quite enjoy the frantic tone, because after 10 minutes, Hoppers gives me something that not a lot of animated movies have given me lately, being genuinely unpredictable. But before we get there, the scenes with Grandma in her final days are so wonderfully understated. There's no dramatic collapse or sudden turn, there's just the visual cues like the tag round her wrist, those physical indicators that spell out the inevitable is coming, whilst also allowing Grandma to bow out on her own terms.
Look after this place, okay?
And the message that explains Mabel's actions perfectly, both contextualizing us up to this point whilst justifying her motivations further down the line as well. It's not just a matter of this is some young environmental activist protesting a politician, this is actually what is left of her grandma, and a promise she made to her. And again, they brought this moment in at the right time, rather than going the up route and having it all in the opening. For Hoppers, it's best drip feeding these scenes when they're most emotionally relevant to the present. We've had here's what Mabel's doing now, followed by here's why. And with that all in mind, it's time for the crazy beaver stuff. As what initially seems to be her plans coming to fruition,
It worked! It worked! Oh.
soon turns weird. And that's just the tip of the Hoppers iceberg, as we soon descend into perhaps the wildest Pixar movie to date. Mabel chasing the van to Beaverton Uni is a very brief part of the movie, but with her chasing this van at night via skateboard, it weirdly gives me Back to the Future vibes that I kinda like. It's a similar atmosphere, you know? That witching hour on the precepts of the big fantastical turning point of the movie. There's even an aesthetically Doc Brown figure going on here. She even rejected the name Doc in the previous scene. And it turns out this was all deliberate, with director Daniel Chong actively putting his influences from Back to the Future and other 80s movies. It shows. From Doc and Dr. Sam to the color scheme of the wired color lab being part inspired by the DeLorean. In our time of wireless and smart technology, Chong made a point of having the lab covered in wires, giving more tangibility to the Hopper's tech, needing a significant amount of power going into it. Beaverton Uni must be footing some huge electricity bills. But it's mad science plot time now. And again, that tone of an 80s family movie premise is very much there, having all this fantastical stuff going on secretly under Mabel's college. Though maintaining the hyperactive pace of this movie, let's just say the let's explain what's happening exposition is a little more manic than in most movies. As Mabel holds the beaver for the whole scene with the energy that she could run away with it at any moment.
I don't know what that means.
Put this into this.
It's like if Doc Brown had to explain the time machine to Marty, whilst Marty was actively holding the plutonium and threatening to run away with it. And I actually really like the manic tension that this creates in the scene. I also really like that despite being a smart character, Mabel doesn't immediately become an unrealistic super genius and understand all the science that's created the Hoppers. Further to the true chaos of this lore, I love the reason behind them creating consciousness jumping robot technology escalated directly from them trying to spy on animals with binoculars.
And the traditional methods just weren't working.
This is where you really have to buy into this leading in with the comedy first, because the fact that these are the steps towards essentially the most advanced technology in the world
I had an idea.
is so beautifully unserious. We go from beaver costume to uploading mind into Beaverbot within 2 steps. But then there's this bit.
This is like Avatar.
This is nothing like Avatar.
I think if this just popped up in the movie, I wouldn't have minded it as much, okay? But when it was in the trailer, it presented what is otherwise a borderline aggressive original movie like a pop culture fest. Terrible marketing. I mean, this line sold this movie to us as Avatar with beavers, which is why the insane plot that ensued definitely took me so off guard. It was a treat for those of us who went to go and see it, but perhaps simplifying the marketing by relying on this one line in the trailers totally undersold the movie. Again, Pixar marketing always does this. Other than the brands being mentioned in Toy Story, we've never really gotten real-world pop culture references that are this direct, you know? And obviously it doesn't help that Avatar is now very much a major Disney-owned brand, making this feel more product placement-y than just referential. And also it was famously one of the most successful financial movies of all time, making this comparison of all of them feel like it's the most obvious cash grab trying to go for the people that made the most money of all time at one point. You know, it put a terrible taste in my mouth, and I hated it. Why is this the first thing we saw? It's the worst line in the movie. Incredible that we've come this far. But anyway, in the actual movie itself, yeah, it doesn't actually matter all that much. But Mabel's still not letting go of the beaver.
That's my life's work in your hands.
You kind of feel frustrated for the scientist at this point that she's still holding on to it, but also it's consistent with the character who began this movie stuffing class pets into her backpack. And unfortunately for them, Mabel also reaches her next idea before they can get it back.
Could find a beaver and get it to move back to the glade.
Yeah, they're not getting the beaver back. And within seconds, our girls jumped over to the chair.
Sorry, Doc. I'll bring it right back.
It's a small detail, but I think as well, having the glowing dot in the wire giving us a visual of the consciousness traveling was a great touch in just illustrating what's happening.
Mabel, we need to get you out of there now!
Wait!
This is an apt point to praise another artistic choice in having different designs for the animal eyes between the animal and human perspective. It both allows more expression whilst in the Hopper's perspective, whilst also making it a very clear visual distinction. In a culture absolutely rife with talking animal movies, you need to have cues like this that make clear how the talking animal thing works in your world.
I'm just gonna borrow it to...
Hoppers. You need technology to understand animals. Dr. Dolittle just can. And then don't even get me started on the lore of Norm of the North. Anyway, an entertaining chase ensues with Mabel escaping.
Stop it! Stop!
She found the button.
In a more straightforward movie, and what you may have thought from the trailers at least, Mabel would have found a cryptic invitation that led her to the lab, and her ultimate hopping would have been part of the plan. They could have even copied Back to the Future directly and had that archetypal mentor and student relationship between Dr. Sam and Mabel. But not this movie. No, particularly with the character and story we've established, it's much more interesting to have her inadvertently break in and then hijack the hoppers for her pre-established goals. As a child, from where she was standing, any potential mentor figure was trying to grab her and stop her helping the animals. And this breakout scene directly mirrors that opening. Only this time, she succeeds in escaping. This is what happens when you prioritize your character over formulaic plotting. We have an active protagonist here whose actions throughout are moving the plot along, as well as quickly hitting her with the consequences.
Yes.
Quiet down, food. My kids need to eat.
Better prepare your kids for some electro spaghetti then, I guess. With beats like this, I was still fully ready at this point for the movie's take on the animal kingdom to align with the wild robot. I'd seen the little crown thing in the trailer, but put very little value on what its significance was actually going to be. Even taking out the insane lore we're about to receive, there's no doubt that Hoppers has its own flavor that differs from the wild robot.
And they were in the same den.
Particularly as Mabel's hyperactive human enthusiasm has a very different impact to Roz, the gentle and inquisitive robot.
Hi! I just need 2 minutes of your time.
Oh, wait.
I also love the parallels to the door-to-door scene earlier, leading to this scene in the trailer which further convinced me of my false wild robot suspicions. Any way to not sell the movie they were selling.
She was gonna eat you!
Well, yeah, she caught me.
I think that's where movies personifying the natural order really sing, when the brutality of it is verbalized in comedy like this.
You still wanna...
That's weird now.
And as much as it feels like it's structured as like a Monty Python sketch, it has direct impact on the next phase of the plot and the weirdness that comes with it.
You broke the pond rules. Now we have to see the king.
Yes, it's time to introduce the concept of animal kings, starting with the mammal king. And we waste no time. It is straight to the huge damn castle temple thing.
What?
It's quite jarring on the first viewing to go from observational nature stuff straight to big animal temple, yet I actually quite like that we don't spend too much time on what was, again, well-trodden ground in The Wild Robot, which would have been released whilst Hoppers was still in mid-production, whether that had any impact or not.
Are these the missing animals from the glade?
And once again, we're going against the easiest formulaic move here. We've had plenty of movies where the animals get sick of the destructive human antics and rebel against us. That could have been the play that Hoppers went with in Mabel disrupting the natural order. But no. In this movie, the natural order is a full-blown pre-established monarchical system. But yeah, we switch to unhinged goofiness just right away. This is where we truly deviate from any further Wild Robot comparison whatsoever. You can breathe. This is the last time I'm going to mention this movie.
Up and down. Yeah, get those little legs moving.
And I really wasn't sure on this bait and switch at first. I saw the pink stereo come out and I thought, oh no, you know? I can't say I love the scene of them all doing King Beaver's workout DVD routine. It feels, dare I say, a little Illumination at this moment, except for the fact that they should be dancing to a Pharrell Williams songs, I guess. Like, the idea that the animals have their own concept of hierarchy and order is such a huge deal, and immediately sliding into Pilates kind of undercuts that moment for me. I'm not saying the animals can't dance in the wacky comedy movie, it's just so sudden, you know? And one example where the breakneck pace doesn't always work. Maybe the tone is a little messy.
What are pond rules?
Wow, I am clearing the rest of the day.
What I do like though is the uncertainty we have as an audience for the beaver with the little crown. It's the kind of character that has the potential to transpire as a villain. Has he hijacked the animal kingdom to his will and turned it into a cult? Is he even a real beaver, or is he actually a hopper who's messed with the natural order to become his own personal army? I even kind of dig that idea. Yet making him the villain would have probably been almost too predictable, and I like the appropriately bonkers way that things actually pan out. Likewise, I love how George approaches being king like he's an overly personable CEO.
Don't be a stranger. It's harder to be mad at someone if you know their name. Pete, Peter, Petey.
This is how I imagine a big tech company addresses all their unpaid interns. And crucially, we then finally discover that this isn't the norm. A haven for all animals isn't standard practice, as we find out from this worm.
Whenever animals lose their home, King invites them to come live here.
Believe it or not, tying us right back to the whole thing with Jerry and the Glade. Yeah, remember that part of the movie? Because long term, this place is not sustainable.
Yeah, it's crowded, unsustainable, and we really miss our homes.
Don't get too engrossed in that worm sadly dipping his head. He hasn't got a great fate in the next few seconds.
But we're still alive.
And it's here we begin to see the different mindsets between Mabel and George, which will ultimately lead to things getting so much worse. Where George's philosophy actually includes humans.
Animal homes, human homes, they're all just one big place.
It's a view of the world we really should all have. We're still all part of the animal kingdom ultimately, and we're sharing this world with all other species. Meanwhile, Mabel, coming from the eco-warrior end, where she's been dealing with a mayor who wants to bulldoze a road over the glaze, is more for the us and them argument. Except against her own species.
They want it all to themselves, and they don't care anyone else.
This is the mindset that leads to the big conflict of the movie. And here's where the next step of the conspiracy arrives.
No one's ever moving back there. It's too loud.
It's time to blow this whole thing wide open via a fun little walking sequence. Though they don't suddenly age a few years a la The Lion King, instead they discover this.
Jerry!
Yeah, he may not be squish a whole species evil, but Jerry's certainly your standard corrupt politician. Or I guess you could just say politician.
Wait, is that why the animals left?
And I think what's neat about this movie is that there are so many different sides at play, you know? You have initially the antagonist, Jerry. You have Mabel, our protagonist who wants to save the Glade by any means necessary.
I say, we take back the Glade!
You have the Hoppers scientists who are against interfering with the natural order, therefore also against Mabel.
She seems to have instead become a beloved Joan of Arc type rebel leader.
You have George, an animal king who wants to be at peace with the humans and have a society that benefits all species.
We're beavers, Mabel. Work is the party.
And then you have a whole other element altogether that hasn't even come into the picture yet. That's what, like 5 factions? Anyway, we then get an actual 80s needle drop, again, rare for a Pixar movie. It's a very Illumination thing to do, once again. Yet I actually do think it really works here, as we see the beavers pretty satisfyingly assembling a dam. Also, the Woody gag in Toy Story 4 seems to have a predecessor here. However, as we transition out of the 80s building montage, we soon return to some stunning visuals of their good work. Returning us to those visual touchstones we saw from Grandma earlier in the movie. The animation seamlessly blending these incredible landscapes into the art style they have established. This isn't like The Good Dinosaur, you know, where they just threw in some really cartoony dinosaurs into ultra-realistic landscapes.
Hey, Dave. Oh, hey, Bill.
I think Disney's Wish just trained my brain to expect one of those deers to be called Bambi.
It's hard to be mad when you feel like you're part of something big.
It's home-hitting moments like this that lead to famous last words like these.
Okay, but I can't stay for long.
She did, in fact, stay for long, much to one guy's annoyance.
What?
Because let's not forget that even actual Jerry's pretty unhinged as a character. Who isn't in this movie? Even Mabel's nuts.
We got a little more work to do.
And I love that it's almost a red herring that Jerry's gonna be the overarching villain the whole movie. We haven't even met the evil character yet, but we're about to. But not before we get this unconventional path to a backstory through Mabel struggling to swim as a beaver.
Parents never taught you, huh?
Yeah, along with everything else.
Mabel's parents are of course notable by their absence in this movie, and her disconnect with them is as much a part of her character as her bond with her grandma. It's interesting. Really, beyond her grandma, these animals are the first characters we've seen Mabel actually spend time with. We also discover that George had a proper medieval type ascension to the throne.
Uncle sought to usurp him, the Twig Wars began.
Proper game of damn situation. But despite his description of this messy piece of royal politics, it still gives us some insight into George's character.
What about your dad?
He was just doing his best.
Albeit, we do tread onto the main character hiding her deception to the new friend that will inevitably be revealed later trope. But especially once that happens, I'd wager that this movie has one of the better examples of that trope, let alone the most brutal. Which is why moments like these are particularly awkward to navigate.
George, I can't be your heir. We just met.
And things just get better.
The glade, it's all gone.
At this point, Jerry seems pretty irredeemable, having blown up evidence that animals were actively returning to the glade. Again, you could not predict where this movie goes in the next 20 minutes.
Summon the council.
It is time, my friends. The final party of our crazy tale has come into the fray. Hey there, thank you for making it to the halfway mark of this video. Come subscribe if you haven't already for more amazing animated movies. Around this time, we've got a couple other movies that came out within the last year that we need to get around to covering, so we're gonna get around to covering those. Thank you for joining along this far in, and now to the second half of Pixar's amazing hoppers.
I'm just a mammal king.
What?
As all other kings and queens assemble. And this introduction on the rewatch being inseparable from the knowledge of where this movie ultimately goes.
The Great Animal Council has been summoned.
I cannot emphasize how insane the climax of this movie seems compared to the first moment here. It's out there as it is, but when you're back at this point of the movie, it's even more nutty that that's where we're going. I love the originality out of this original movie. It's like the best bit. And all that considered, I like that initially the council are not bothered about helping out with the situation.
Humans are your subjects, Mammal King. Get your house in order.
It's our active protagonist Mabel who ends up radicalizing them to act.
Building his big stupid highway. Doing this to the places you called home.
And it's here that for the first time, Mabel experienced negative consequences to not listening to others' advice. Beyond her grandma, anyway. As emphasized by this For the Birds cameo. I love the super niche Pixar references like this, you know? It's not Avatar, is it?
We don't stop him now. We're doomed.
And it provides a valuable lesson as well, how even with the best intentions, dramatizing a situation and using fear tactics can cause more harm than good. Something that Mabel discovers the hard way.
Let's squish the human king.
Until now, Mabel's disregard for the rules and the instructions of others has all been in aid of something you can't really disagree with her on. Jerry's plan's objectively awful, and she was almost successful in taking the glade back. However, ignoring George's warnings to let him do the talking leads to the most cataclysmic turning point in the whole movie.
Jerry shall be squished. Summon an apex predator.
Though it's very much the insect queen's sinister nature that proposes this, it's directly Mabel's actions that they are a consequence of. I also do enjoy how squish makes perfect sense from an insect's perspective, in terms of their primary concept of death. Likewise, I enjoy their really sinister mark of death in the sky. And speaking of squishing, here's the moment that took everyone off guard in the most brutally hilarious moment in the movie.
You call yourself intelligent, stupid squish, or be squished?
There are not many contexts where you can get away with a character killing a character like this in a family-friendly movie, but boy do they use the rare opportunity well.
Mom?
The timing, the tension, the whole execution, no pun intended, is truly exceptional. And it's even better that it's Mabel who's the culprit, you know? The person who spent the whole movie trying to help the animals accidentally ends up killing one of them. And the subsequent chase sequence is both full of momentum and unsung for the sheer number of characters we have on screen at one time. The majority of what's filling each frame is a moving animal. It manages to be suspenseful and still silly, throwing in little gems like this.
Avian traitor, face the beast!
Whenever there's a gag that personifies animal behavior like this, it scratches an itch for me, you know? As does the most extreme Pixar villain ever, about to take center center stage.
Silence! Show some respect.
The fact that the alpha of the animal kingdom is a bloodthirsty caterpillar, like, you just gotta love that. We are a long ways away from a Bug's Life's caterpillar.
Spare me your pity. All hail Titus, the insect king!
Pixar has been one of the guilty parties in avoiding straight-up villains in recent years. And whilst with a lot of those stories a more multifaceted antagonist did work, I actually think Gabby Gabby's arc in Toy Story 4 is one of the highlights in that movie. It's still nice to see a tiny lunatic like this show up and cause damage. Also, we get two very different incarnations of Titus in this, and with both, basically every line they have is funny.
Attend me as I pupate.
I love how in preschool storybooks, caterpillar transformations are always shown as this amazing thing, but here they make it look so sinister and weird. From the heights of comedic villainy to a more sincere point in Mabel's journey, as her going against what he said ultimately led to all this.
I made you my paw. You squished my colleague.
There isn't really a way of sugarcoating that, is there? And this leads to a rare, I've made everything worse meltdown scene that's actually earned for once.
I can't even fix this one little thing. I can't make a difference.
And in this story of a character who's very much an activist, she hits on a feeling that a lot of us who want to make a difference often feel challenged by, that in the grand scheme of things, making a real difference as an individual is hopeless, and the loneliness of that individuality as well, particularly in getting things so wrong in the pursuit of doing the right thing.
I am so tired of having to do this alone.
For the first time since losing her grandma, we saw her experience a connection with others, and the sense of losing that so quickly is her breaking point.
Why doesn't anyone else care?
But this is a pattern broken by George, gifting Mabel the words that everyone else has failed to so far.
It matters to you, so it matters to me.
It's nice to fit in this moment of sincerity before the movie's insane-o-meter takes its next major jump.
If we convince Jerry to give it back...
The council will call off the squish.
Because now we're cutting over to Jerry and the last normal moment of his life.
I'm on my way.
Despite having the knowledge that he's been installing illegal speaker trees making sounds harmful to animals, maybe you start to realize he's not entirely a bad guy.
Okay, Mom, here you go.
Before making sure to capture the very last moment of normalcy.
Memo to self. Remember this feeling.
Yeah, good shout, buddy. Okay, bring on the shark. Of course, first we have to attempt to initiate communications with him.
What do you want?
With a surprisingly satisfying use of smartphones in this movie.
Your life is in danger.
You may sometimes notice that movies try to avoid smartphones wherever possible, as it's not a particularly interesting convenience to factor into your storytelling.
You know my name?
Talking to you, Sid Phillips.
Whilst of course an essential sequence to the overall story, on its own, it's a great piece of comedy. From the initial hijack and negotiations with the beavers,
Cancel your dumb highway, and no one will get hurt.
to the looming threat of the birds surrounding the street, giving the flavors of Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. Each bit of this scene revels in the absurd waters that we're now navigating, quite literally as Hoppers reaches its lifting the shark moment. And as ridiculous as this moment is, they do nail the build-up towards it. We've had animal uprising movies many times, but if the whole concept of the different kingdoms wasn't already enough for you, then a bunch of birds lifting a great white shark out of the water should certainly do the job. The transition as well from the Hopper view, giving her such a personable voice, to her apex predator mode, actually makes it so much more sinister. It's my favorite moment of the movie, I think.
Be back in a minute.
And yet, it's the action comedy elements that still ultimately make this scene sing.
Diane's back.
What other movie could even have an action sequence like this that makes any sense at all? We now have a shark on a car, a van full of scientists, and a bear with some beavers on its back in pursuit. This is my kind of movie.
You'll feel a brief biting sensation followed by death.
All the while still keeping the plot going amongst all the madness.
It's me, Mabel.
Mabel? I get it. Just a
Jerry?
dream.
Honestly, that's a valid response. Although one that leads to a shot that really embodies how extra this movie goes. I had no concept that we'd have a shot like this when I saw this the first time. And yet somehow they managed to bring us right back to the fields within minutes, because even after almost being eaten by an airborne shark,
I'm not canceling the Beltway.
and it's just emotionally downhill from here. Cue the saddest shot of the movie. Emotional brutality followed by this sinister shot. Because somehow the plot's about to go even weirder. Weirder than the birds lifting the shark. Because Mabel's lessons of how far one can mess up the natural order is about to reach all new heights. And presenting this through silhouettes actually makes the whole thing way creepier than if you could just see the butterfly go into the machine.
Opposite use.
As we have this all-time iconic, unhinged reintroduction of our villain, and perhaps Dave Franco's greatest performance.
Hey, Mabel, are you not pleased to see your king?
The extreme performance, the permanently crazed eyes, the skin dragging over the robot skeleton. It's certainly one of the best designs for a body-snatching, evil double type character. Despite being a double of Jerry, those touches in the design make it clear that we're looking at a different character here. Also the choice to have Dave Franco to voice Titus Jerry rather than just having Jon Hamm doing both roles. It feels like Titus in a different body, rather than Jon Hamm trying to sound slightly different. Just in this one scene, he has some absolute bangers.
A true king would bear the lushness for all to see.
There's a reason this scene has done its round on Shorts and TikTok. And then there's the plan to use a sound so powerful that it makes humans' brains explode.
Sound is not just extremely annoying, it extremely squishes you.
And yet once again, they can switch it back to the feels just like that. And something else inspired storytelling-wise is just the fact that Mabel and George can't talk to each other to also frame the break in their bond.
George?
I think it's time for another visit from Grandma. Representing Mabel's moment of clarity as we have Mabel and Jerry having an actual conversation for the first time. A moment that you would have expected to be the climax based on the opening. In a more formulaic movie, you'd have had Jerry remain the main villain, and the end of the movie would be stopping the bridge construction in the nick of time.
We can get out of this if we just work with each other.
Put on the helmet,
Jerry!
Instead, we're having this conversation with both of them tied up by another villain who, by the way, is a robot clone of one of them with the consciousness of a bloodthirsty butterfly. You are watching the third act of Disney's Pixar's Hoppers.
Jerry, you did it!
And yes, in Hopper Vision, they put his hairstyle on the bloody beaver.
Still gonna build the Beltway.
And I'm still gonna fight it. We've got more important things to do.
And so, with the mare tucked into the beaver, it's climax time.
Sure is nice to be human.
Titus Jerry just continues to deliver the goods. The team who worked on that character had a damn good time at the office.
You don't have to do this, Titus! Someone very wise once taught me, don't be a stranger. Pond rule.
It's the come to the good side speech we expected to have had with actual Jerry at the start, but of course there's no way that will work on this character. They also still manage to keep the comedy going while they're at it.
I'm sorry I killed your mom.
But it's not narratively pointless either, beyond just showing us how evil Titus is.
Did you actually think that would work?
Because as we can see, this is what George needs to ultimately forgive Mabel and at least try to help.
Seize this treasonous milk drinker!
Just in time for Titus to go full beast mode with the robot body.
I don't think that's the mayor.
And as he gets more desperate, the more of the creepy robot avatar thing is revealed.
Time to die, human!
With yet another actual really creative use of the smartphone, the face recognition no longer working, only driving Titus's madness further out into the open.
I will squish every last one of you! The mammals, birds, the reptiles!
Of course, this is also its downfall, but this is yet another moment where Hoppers deviates from the formula. But rather than the villain defeat being the end of it, that defeat is directly the cause of the true climax. which also means that all of the hopper bodies have been destroyed. And looks like this one's taken the whole forest with it. Don't worry though, Titus gets perhaps one of the most blunt deaths in Pixar history, besides his own mum.
Only the insects will...
And that was that. We then see the culmination of how this movie's blended the semi-realism of the environments with the stylized characters, as the fire sequences hit you with the most visceral visions in the whole movie. This scene is both so intense and emotionally devastating that it's hard to believe we were watching once a shark being carried by seagulls like 20 minutes ago.
Please, no. I'm so sorry, George.
You're meant to feel the devastation of a forest fire from this scene, as many artists who worked on this movie also probably experienced that same thing firsthand in California of all places. Even in their wackiest movie, Pixar can still pack in those visuals. And now very much addressing George's principle of the animal and human homes being one place, the fire is now heading for the city. And in an equally as tidy piece of plotting, they are sat on the giant beaver reservoir-shaped resolution.
Are you sure, George?
And all the animals working together to undo the dam is about as satisfying a resolution for this movie's climax as you could want. Mabel's now part of something big, definitely not alone, and the person who's made a huge difference. All in the name of the Glad and her grandma. And yes, the shark shows up again. And hey, it even sends a Nord stick to Jerry, showing just who's behind this. Leading us to the last thing we need to tie up loose ends, Mabel and Jerry burying the hatchet.
What are you gonna do about the Beltway?
Let's figure this out together.
That being said, and this is part of it amazing, it's still an amazing movie, of course it is, but this level of accountability and will to change from a politician is included as a reminder that this is a work of fiction. It is a handful of tropes done in some of their best examples, but they are still boiled down tropes, you know? We are far and away from the likes of A Bug's Life, which so much more spoke about overthrowing a form of authority through sheer number and community. It's still community, but it is not applicable to the real world. It's the classic eco-activist movie that says, meet in the middle. And that simply isn't a strong or good message, because it's just not applicable in reality. Add on to the fact that this final climax was a break the dam trope from a big fire trope, and it's kind of the ending that just leaves this a little more milquetoast after what is otherwise one of the most crazy, fun, original Pixar movies. It's not a classic, but it's a damn good mid. In the sense of, it's still the same degree as the last 10 years of Pixar originals, but it's a damn good shining example amongst them. Also, even though they were rivals, Jerry and Mabel weirdly have the most character chemistry throughout this. You know, it's not quite Joker and Batman, but still. And to the resolution on Mabel's graduation day where the college has shut down hopping, and you know, the natural order of the entire animal kingdom almost collapsed because of it, so, you know, fair enough. Cue the quick up reference.
All my other ideas, and I have a lot.
No idea what this does to the Pixar series, presuming she relocates to South America and an old guy steals all her inventions with her Zeppelin one day. And Mabel successfully pitches herself as Dr. Sam's Marty McFly.
Thank you, Dr. Sam.
And over to Beaverton Glade, where I'm glad they didn't just have it miraculously recover from a forest fire immediately. Instead, we have a plain of growing tree saplings with some black textures from the fire lurking beneath the green that's grown over it. And there on Grandma's rock, look who it is. Which of course is just another neat visual all-rounder for Mabel. And they even managed to end the movie on a callback to an emoji gag and actually make it touching.
Chopped wood logs, red heart, red heart.
And that is the bafflingly amazing Pixar's Hoppers. I was so convinced that this was going to be another Elio blunder. I was ready for an absolute slop mess. And in many ways, it is a messy, chaotic movie, and by no means perfect, but in this case, yeah, It really, really works. I love how much of a bold swing this movie is. It is not a safe bet at all, this one. It's got crazy ideas throughout that somehow just keep one-upping the previous, all the while being sincere to Mabel as a character. And I think that's why it's another step in a potential return to form for the studio, even if it's not quite the heights of an actual Pixar classic. It's a damn good time. And it's not like Pixar has absolutely no ability to make good films. We are far from that, because I liked Elemental and Inside Out too, you know? It was just that Elio house fire last year that was a real blunder. And Toy Story 5, you know, it's doing its thing. Having the same kind of point of there's got some interesting ideas, but it doesn't hit the messaging mark. Doesn't at all cover the topic of kids versus tech. They're just there in the background. Oh, isn't that funny? You know? Just get along with your politician and work together with him. That's doable. The closest we can get to Hoppers being a reality is if Britain elects someone like Count Binface. And then maybe we're closer to the unhingedness of this. Oh yeah, by the time this comes out, that will have already finished by now. Maybe this movie wasn't quite the one for you, but Pixar's amazing Hoppers really was for me. On that note though, I'm gonna end things off there. My name's been Daz. Thank you very much for reaching the end of this video. Do tell us your thoughts on all things Hoppers, because I don't think it's perfect, but it is damn good. I'd love to hear all of your thoughts and more. It's an interesting topic. But otherwise, I shall see you all in a little bit. Cheerio!